Hello, and welcome to Required Reading, the podcast that revisits the most impactful books from our childhood. I'm Erin Bowles. I'm an actor, writer, and I can't think of a third thing today. Our guest today is Max Gross, and we're discussing the first/second book in the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. Hi, Max. Can you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Max Gross, he, him. I'm a Brooklyn-based comedian and writer. I am a contributor for Reductress and The Onion, and I'm super excited to have reread this. It was really cute to go back and reread a book from childhood. So
I
I'm
loved
excited.
rereading this. Yeah. It's published in 1950. The Second World War has just ended. Cold War starts. Korean War starts. There's just like a lot of international turnover. So like India forms a republic. It gets its first president. Belgium, there's a referendum on the monarchy. Like, do you like it or not? And 57% says, yeah, bring him back, which causes the government to just collapse. And I don't think it goes
Oh
well.
my God, I
Shift
didn't
to
know
make
that.
1950, real messy year. I think something I'm realizing like the longer time goes on is that like every day and age is terrifying and confusing, and
Yeah, that's
it's always
yeah.
unprecedented times. And I think that must have been just a crazy time to be. And you're starting to see the rise of like anti-communism, not just in the US, but internationally. So like there is this singer actor named Paul Robeson whose passport gets revoked because he's supposedly communist related, and it doesn't get reinstated for 8 years. And in South Africa, they pass the Suppression of Communism Act. Everything's sort of starting. And C.S. Lewis is Clive Staples Lewis, which for some reason is very funny to me.
I did not know that's what it stood for.
CS feels like younger somehow. And I know that as a kid he went by Jack. That
Where's
he
that come
had.
from?
It was a dog that he had. He died when he was 4, and he was just really fucked up about it. And
I'm Jack now.
Jack or Jaxie. Yeah, I'm gonna name myself after the dead dog, which, good for him.
That's a baller move, I guess.
He's born in Ireland. His dad is a lawyer and grandfather is a priest. He loved like Beatrix Potter. He wrote and illustrated his own sort of like animal tales as a kid. Him and his brother made a world called Boxen that's very much like a Narnia predecessor. He gets interested in like Scandinavian and Norse and Greek mythology. And in his teen years, I believe, goes to boarding school in England and has this huge culture shock. He says, the strange English accents with which I was surrounded seemed like the voices of demons. But what was worst was the English landscape. At that moment, I conceived a hatred for England which took many years to heal.
Pop off, King.
Yep.
Wait, that's incredible.
And then the First World War starts, and he is in the trenches. He, early in his teen years, becomes an atheist. He describes himself as like being very angry with God for not existing and equally angry with God for creating the world. And in between the wars, like, comes back to religion. He is very good friends with J.R.R. Tolkien, and like credits Tolkien with part of him coming back to Christianity. And I think like this was hard for me to like wrap my head
I
around,
didn't
but I
know they
think it's
knew
like
each other.
C.S. Lewis, I think, is like he's a religious scholar and has like a very scholarly mind. And I think Tolkien like logics him through religion, and like that's what gets him back.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but after World War II starts, he and his family, they take in evacuees, children from London. There are 3 girls named Margaret, Mary, and Catherine. He does just a lot of like religious speaking. So he does radio programs about religion during air raids. He talks like to the RAF on holiday weekends. His death gets overshadowed by the JFK assassination, which happens 55 minutes after he dies.
What? I guess I
Yeah.
forgot that these are all happening at the same time. Clive Staples Lewis and John F. Kennedy. I was like, what is the JF
Yeah.
stand for? For just a second. I got there.
Narnia starts technically in 1914 when he's like 16. There is like a picture he draws of a fawn with parcels in a snowy wood.
Wait, I
But
think I've seen this drawing.
yeah, he like doesn't finish the first book until 1949. He's had that since he was a teenager, and then one day when he was about 40, I said to myself, let's try to make a story about it. The first book is dedicated to his goddaughter, Lucy Barfield. Her father was a friend since 1919 of Lewis's. He was a poet and philosopher. And the fifth book, Don Tradar, is dedicated to her foster brother. And Lucy became a dance and music teacher but developed MS and lived with MS for 40 years, and last
Oh.
5 years of her life could not move or speak. But her foster brother, who the other book is dedicated to, she liked to listen to him read Narnia to her over and over and over again. Yeah. How did this book come into your life? What's your story with this book?
I don't remember how the books ended up in my house. I just
Mhm.
remember having the box of all of them. It was
Yeah.
7, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just remember having a box of like all 7 of them and being like, okay, well, whatever, there's a volume here.
Hmm.
Surely this is. And I had like heard of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe because that's the most famous one. So I started with that one. I read that one, then read all the way, and then read the first one, which I don't know. I'm like, did every kid do that? Probably. Because I was like, I'm not gonna go read the first one until I finish all this. But the funniest thing to me was I didn't find out until years later. People were like, oh my God, yeah, there's the religious
Yeah.
overtones of that. I was like, the what? And then I went back and reread it and was like, oh my God, how did I 100% missed all of this? Like
Oh yeah.
little
Like
Jewish kid.
I missed it all too. Like I read the book in second grade for class. We had like a breakout group and it was me and one other girl, and her parents said you're not allowed to read the book because it has magic.
The Jesusiest book
I
ever. Like
know.
Aslan died for Edmund's sins,
Exactly.
literally.
And like that is a thing that I like wish I kind of never learned and just like could keep it as these books, because I think like I just really love the surface level, you know?
I loved the surface level so much. I just loved the idea of like, as a kid, I was so drawn to the idea of like, what if there was a way that I could get away from absolutely everything? And what if it was in my house?
Yeah.
The like proximity to magic was so exciting to me as an idea. I didn't think any of it had to do with any kind of religion. I just was like, nope, this is just 100% magic, 100% whimsy. Was so
Yeah.
all about it.
I know I got the box set, I think at a Scholastic Book Fair. Shout out to them.
Yes, shout out.
And I think it was third grade. I read it in second grade, and then in third grade, the movie came out. I don't know where my parents found this, but they had found like a BBC miniseries DVD, very low budget version that I had watched a bunch. And then the movie came out, and I found this thick movie companion that it was a lot of like behind the scenes movie stuff. And I didn't know at the point that I wanted to go work in entertainment, but I think that's why it like made a big impact with me, and I would carry it everywhere. And like that movie made a really big impact on me. I discovered this morning, I was talking to my boyfriend and I was like, we're gonna have Turkish Delight. And he goes, what?
Yes.
And he's never consumed any media about it. And I
None?
was like, none. And I was like, where were you? How? What? And also, I had to explain, like, yeah, this boy, like, sacrifices his whole family for some candy. So we're gonna see if the candy is good.
Like, that's crazy to have avoided that. I think I remember that on the cover of the book, it was like soon to be made
Mm-hmm.
into a major motion picture. It like
Yeah.
said something on the book about this is not a movie yet, but it will be. And when I was rereading it, like I did see the movie and I was kind of like, oh, I am slightly remembering. Like if I had not reread it, there was a lot that I would have forgotten about. But then reading it again, I was like, yep, all coming back. There we go.
I only ever read the first book, Magician's Nephew. I think because in my mind I was like, no, the author has the intent of this being the first one, so I have to like respect the intent. And then that was really fun, I think, because they were just like jumping in, I think, into like puddles and like showing up in other places. And I could never, ever, ever get into Horse and His Boy, because it was, I think, just it was like a horse and a boy in a desert, and I was like, this is so boring. And I was also very much like, if there's not a girl in it, I don't care.
You're like, who am I supposed to relate to? What's the point?
Exactly. Like my dad found out about Harry Potter and was like trying to get me into it, and I was having none of it. And then you took me to see the movie, and I looked a lot like Hermione with the big hair, and I was like, you can read it. I give permission now. I'll listen.
Like, there we go. There's my
Yeah.
access point. I remember very little about any of the other books.
If you want to come back and read any of them, we'll do a whole series if you like.
I mean, I also audiobook it,
Yeah.
but the audiobook went fast.
It was a quick little read. Like, I was on vacation last week and just like reading it on my phone on the plane, and it was really
Oh.
delightful. And it's written in a really interesting, like, sort of like the Princess Bride movie of like, you really feel like someone is telling this to you. It's very
Yeah, I forgot that it
Yeah.
kind of breaks the fourth wall, where like there's some point where the writing is like, we can't tell you how scary it was, or your parents won't let you read this book, or
Yeah,
something like
exactly.
that. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I forgot that it was like playful about it like that kind of.
It's so playful. My first note is again about the movie. I was obsessed. Like, it's a seed of like when you go back and you're like, oh, that was gay of me in hindsight, of how much I was obsessed with Susan and the actress who played her, Anna Popplewell, who, by the way, is in The Nun too. I went to see that movie in
Oh,
theaters recently, and I was like,
interesting.
Susan does a great job. But I was obsessed with her. I thought she was like the definition of gorgeous. It was her and Anne Hathaway. But one of my favorite things is that it's dedicated to his goddaughter, and it says girls grow quicker than books, so by the time he finishes it, she's going to be too old for it, but someday you will be old enough to start reading fairy tales again. And that just felt very nice
That's
for this
cute.
show. Yeah. My first note is, what the fuck is up with Edmund? Why is this boy
I I don't know what I thought. I was like, I know he's like kind of like the little evil wicked child, but I forgot that he's just like baselessly spiteful
Yeah.
constantly. I forgot that he's just fucking out to get everyone all the time. I was like, yeah, I'll literally give my family up for some candy. I don't give a fuck. And I understand that the candy is like magical, but I don't think it needed to be for him to for him to do that.
No, I think he was just like, yeah, I think maybe because he like thought so little of Lucy that he was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll just like go along, yes, and have some fun in the woods and it'll all be fine. But I was thinking of like most hated the siblings in young people's literature, and I was like, it's Edmund Pevensey and Amy March. But
Yep.
it fucking hates them.
The fact that Peter kept calling him a beast,
Yeah.
like genuinely was like as a genuine insult is so funny to me. It's like,
And
why are
he's-
you being so beastly?
And he's gotta be like 9.
Yeah.
Like, just
This is like a third grader, fourth grader who's just like spite motivated and Turkish delight motivated. And that's it.
And I was an only child and like so desperate for siblings and like company. I wondered about you because I was so jealous of like you have a whole group to go adventuring with.
I so like now looking back, I'm like, oh, this kind of made sense. I have one sibling. I have a younger brother who's 2 years younger than me, kind of giving Edmund vibes, like kind of very much giving Edmund vibes. Like we at my choice have not spoken in 4 years. It's been great. Like he's not allowed in my parents' house anymore.
Oh my god.
Family has since been like, fuck this, we're good. But like growing up in that environment, part of what was so appealing to me about Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe was I was like, for love of fucking God, I wish that I could crawl in this closet and not have to deal with like living with this nightmare person. It was cute that it was a story about like siblings uniting, but I think part of me is super related to like, oh yeah, and then there's one shitty brother who's gonna go fuck it up for everybody else.
Yeah.
Like, yep, I live with one of those. The characters are like, I don't know how Edmund could just be so beastly all the time. I'm like, yeah, I do.
It like baffled me so much, and then there is one throwaway line right at the end that like my ears really perked up, where the battle has already happened, which was interesting to me. Is like the battle pretty much takes place off screen, and it's like a page in the book.
When I was listening back to it, I was like, I had to rewind because I was like,
Yeah.
surely there was more of this that I missed, and there was not.
And Lucy is like healing everybody, and the writing says not only is he healed of his wounds, but he's looking better than Lucy had ever seen him look. Oh, for ages. In fact, ever since his first term at that horrid school, which was where he had begun to go wrong. He had become his real old self again and could look you in the face. What happened at school? And then I was wondering, like, is Edmund C.S. Lewis? Like, was he just an asshole because of something that happened at school? And then he, like, this is Aslan, this is Jesus coming to be like, it's okay.
Wait, because I caught that at the end too and was like, this seems interesting of you to try to throw in an
Yeah.
explanation for his character development on the last page, being
Yeah.
like, and this is why he was a dick. But I didn't think about connecting it to like D.S. Lewis. But yeah, like what do you mean? What was going on at school?
What happened?
What happened?
He has so much animosity towards Peter that I'm like, did something happen at school with Peter? Like, what happened?
Yeah, I felt like I did not know how that got there. I was like, well, yeah, I guess he's just a little shit. And at the end, they're like, well, here's why he was a little shit, and also he's cured.
Yeah,
It's
done.
like, okay, good.
But I wanted to ask, and we sort of touched on this, like, where did you like explore as a kid? And like, this is at the professor's house, who I think is supposed to be like kind of a grandparent figure, just like a much older person that you don't really understand. And I would explore my grandparents' house like in my teen years, mostly to steal stuff.
That's awesome.
Because it was like, these people are mean. I love trinkets, and that's a great place for them.
So I grew up in like suburban Maryland, and in our backyard it was like a storm creek. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
like an actual river or anything. But like I used to love being back there when I was a little kid and would just like go follow it through everybody else's backyard. And then I kind of stopped doing it because it got harder to do. But there was somebody, I forget how I figured this out. I think it was because it was at the bottom of a hill that people went to for sledding, but it was like through somebody else's backyard and you had to walk kind of a ways, but there was like a lake that you could get to by walking through the woods. And that was like my spot with a bunch of my friends in middle school. We'd go over there. There's one winter that we like built a little hut out of a bunch of sticks, and like we did a horrible job at it and just like could not get it to stay up. But like we were out there building stuff and like pushing it out on the lake when it was frozen. We weren't walking out there because it's dangerous. And, like later when I was a teenager, I'm pretty sure I like smoked weed there one time because
Good.
by the time I came back as a teenager, somebody had built a little fire pit and it was like, okay, somebody else found this too. I read that a few years before I found the bigger spot, but like the one in my backyard, I very much kind of saw it as that in my mind.
Yeah. Halloween was a couple weeks ago. I kept thinking like my family, our old house, like backed up to, it was like a tiny bit of woods and then a road behind it. You know, like in hindsight, it was just a buffer. But that's where me and my dad would like take our old pumpkins out and sort of put them in the distance. And then we would go and be like, oh, something, you know, somebody ate it. And that always felt like very mystical and magical. And then there was a lake next to the house that had, if you like went over the artificial hill, there was like a little wooden path. And that, I also grew up in Maryland, and one of the biggest things is like leaving that is a gorgeous state. Like the greenery is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like magical.
Yeah, I didn't appreciate that until I lived other places and was like, well, damn, oops.
Yeah.
I thought that was just everywhere.
Exactly. I live in LA, which is obviously like a lot of buildings, a lot of desert. And last year I went to Kentucky, where my parents are from, and I was blinded by how green everything was. It was like I was wearing green glasses or something. It was bizarre, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, every time I go home, I'm like my parents have moved and they're not far from where I grew up. Like they're still in the same town, but they're in an area that's like not as wooded. And even still, it's still like trees that were intentionally planted there. It's not like where we were before, where it's like trees that have been there.
Right.
But I'm still like, oh, like there's more plants on my way walking the dog than there are if I like go to a park near me intentionally in Brooklyn. You guys just have the Botanic Gardens here.
There was some like huge tree that was like hundreds and hundreds of years old, and my mom texted me a couple years ago to be like, it fell, and it felt like this huge mementos of like, a chapter has ended. The tree that's like on the flag of like Germantown is gone. Yeah.
Really? Like, I think it's the Gaithersburg tree.
Yeah.
That's ours. That's us. I'm gonna have to text my mom and be like, the tree. You didn't tell me.
I think it was Gaithersburg. I don't know.
I remember there's like, I went to Jewish summer camp in the Poconos, but most of the people, by most of, I mean literally everyone except me and one other kid, was from New York, and it was me and him from Maryland. And people would be like, oh, is Maryland, is it rural? Is it like a farm? We were like, no. But this like was a farm that we would drive past, and it was like huge open space kind of in the middle of a couple major roads, and then just one huge tree. And I would see photographers pull over to get out there like all the time, but it was like I don't even know how to estimate open space. I could give any
Yeah.
measurement and it would be cartoonishly wrong, but like it was super beautiful. And like, that is that the 200-year-old tree, because it was
Yeah.
huge.
Thinking about like portals and like liminal spaces and stuff in childhood, I had a really important summer camp. It was at a church, and then behind the church in the cornfield was a little bit of wooded area. And you had to go over this huge hill and then turn, and like from the parking lot, the kids like disappeared into the cornfield kind of. And that always felt like really magical. And I just loved that camp so much. And then you go down the hill into the woods.
Yeah, it's nice to like, I'm glad that I read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe as a kid because of all the timing. Like, it let me tie that magic to a certain place. Like, if I hadn't read it until I was an adult, I probably would have just kind of mentally kept it to the book. Whereas instead, like, it was so important to me as a kid because I was like, well, that's this place, that's my backyard, or this other
Yeah.
person's backyard that I was just in a lot when I was 12 to 14.
Me too. And I love that the marker is the lamppost, which is so normal and so like universal that you've come in and then you immediately see Mr. Tumnus, who like no matter how many times I read this book, the betrayal of Mr. Tumnus always hurts. It hurts like nobody's business. And I always am ready to forgive him. I am always like, he's James McAvoy and he did nothing wrong.
That's the name of the actor, was him. Oh my God. Yes, I always think of the scarf. Like, I always think of the big ass scarf.
And the naked chest.
Yes. Also, the audiobook that I listened to, the narrator did an Irish accent for Mr. Tumnus and like was British, so it's not like it was super different, but it was extremely funny to hear him like crying to Lucy, being like, "Oh, I'm the evil one who was supposed to give you up," but like sounding like the fucking Lucky Charms mascot.
Yeah.
Like, it was so as fully Irish as possible to try to distinguish the voice, and it was just such a funny choice to me. Like, all right,
Man.
Irish Mr. Tumnus, let's
Yeah,
go.
throw it in. I mean, the next thing on my list is that there's this prophecy about sons of Adam and daughters of Eve. The sons of Adam, daughters of Eve thing I knew was a religious thing, and I think I just blew over it because as an adult, I am like, you have this whole magical world and Christianity? Like,
Where did you guys get that one from?
Exactly. And I think like the first book, Magician's Nephew, is like going to Narnia for the first time and like how Narnia starts. And so I guess like through that lens, like the kids who came here had Christianity, but it's it just doesn't make any sense to me.
We can have magic and lions can come back from the dead, but we have one religion.
Jesus.
And
Yeah.
that's Jesus. It was so interesting. So I'm trans and my girlfriend is also trans. And I was listening to the audiobook and like live texting her my reactions to stuff and heard them say, I was like, I don't really feel like I've heard the religious stuff yet. And then they instantly, that was when they were like, oh, are you a daughter of Eve and like son of Adam? And I heard that. And I texted her, I was like, I guess I would be a son of Eve if we want to get technical about it.
Man.
She was like, okay, wait, that actually sounds bad.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm like, write that down. That's an interesting, like, the C.S. Lewis estate. I don't know if they're gonna vouch for it, but write
Yeah,
it in.
they're not gonna like it. They're not gonna like it, but I'm having fun with it. I was like, this is my little interpretation. I was like, I don't think it's that religious. And then the first thing they say to this girl when she gets to an unknown world, he's like, I guess I figured as a kid that it was just a way of avoiding saying human. Because I thought that it was like, well, how would they know what a human is? But then rereading it, like, they do know what a human is. They say human.
Like, you're a human, comma, daughter of Eve.
Yeah, I'm like if I were to go there and they would be like,
Hmm?
are you a son of Adam? I would be like, like, according to which book? Like, what if, thought experiment, what if a Jewish human or any other religion, absolutely any other religion showed up and they would be like if a Buddhist monk walked in there and they're like, are you a son of Adam? And the guy was like, what?
It feels like such a universal text, and then looking at it as an adult, it does feel like actually so narrow and yet has those little details of like escapism that feel really relatable. But it's like the thing I keep coming to is like we can have lions that can fly, but like we still have to have Jesus. Like
He still has to be Jesus. Yeah, it was kind of alarming. I did not realize how much that was all in there, and then rereading it was impossible to miss. And like honestly kind of speaks to my childhood growing up in like such a Jewish area.
Mhm.
I'm like, wow, my childhood was so devoid of like waspy Christians. I didn't get introduced to those until like teenager, young adult. And
Yeah.
like if I had, I don't know if I would have enjoyed this book nearly as much as a kid.
Yeah. Religion was such a like a non-thing until high school, and then it was like other people are religious. Like I had a couple religious friends, but before that it was like the only thing I remember is once I was in Girl Scouts. I was very very young. It was like first or second grade, and Christmas was coming, and the leader's daughter was saying something, and I said that I don't go to church, and she's like, "Well, then you're going to hell." And I was like, "I'm 6. What do you want from me?" But I wanted to ask, we are both writers. How do you feel as a writer about prophecies? Because I feel like it's something I should hate, and yet I really like them.
That's such a good question. I feel like it was a very neat and tidy bow to be like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is why the witch wants to do this. You're getting in the way of this. I think for the medium that it is, which is like it is a children's book
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, I was like, okay, I guess this makes sense. I've never thought about how do I feel about
Yeah.
prophecies as a
Oh.
whole. I feel like it could be kind of a lazy way out of whatever to be like by saying here's the prophecy, you're basically
Mm-hmm.
being like, and now I, as an author, am going to explain what the backstory is
Yes,
here.
it is like it is a dump. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
backstory info dump.
Yeah.
But also, I didn't fully understand what was going. There's something with blood that I don't know.
Oh,
I like got it and then didn't get it. I was like, yeah,
yeah.
there's 4 humans, and that's why she was so interested in being like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're like, just kidding. Also, part of it is that if there's 4 of them, she will die. I was like, okay, sure.
But I think that, oh, actually, I did want to ask, like, such an unnerving detail when I was younger is that the trees themselves are listening and are spies, and that still kind of sent a little chill down me, which I was surprised by.
Yeah, I forgot that that was part of it. And then rereading that, I was like, oh, that's okay. Commentary on surveillance
Yeah.
state come through C.S.
Oh,
Lewis.
yeah, and like communism and the Red Scare rising.
Yeah, I'm like,
Interesting.
oh, what? That's crazy. You lived in a time where it felt like everyone was watching what you did very closely. That's insane.
Mhm.
Couldn't imagine why.
Could not. But I was also surprised, like, I've read a lot of children's books as an adult because of this podcast. And this was, like, genuinely very frightening. Like, I don't think he really holds back a lot. Like, you don't see the actual moment that Aslan dies because, like, Lucy and Susan turn away, but it's brutal. And, like, the scene in which Aslan dies and he's, like, tortured is still it's that and Mr. Tumnus's betrayal that are like those are still wounds, you know, those are still such affecting
They like
scenes.
shave him beforehand and like fucking bully him before they kill him.
Yeah.
I think that might have been part of what I liked as a kid is that I felt like when you're a little kid, you can tell which adults are talking to you in like a puppy voice and which adults are talking to you like a person. And like this was a book that felt like it was talking to me as a person and being like, yeah, you're 8, but I feel like you can handle violence.
Yeah.
Thank you for trusting me.
It was also weird, like coming off World War II and like knowing that C.S. Lewis, I think, entered World War I at like 19. It just felt very contrary to the time that they are like, Peter, you got to be a soldier now. Time to learn swords and war. Coming out of the post-war world, especially in England, I just feel like it's an odd response.
They did have a line in it that stuck out to me that was like, Father Christmas, because why would you call him Santa, is giving them all the presents. Either when he gives the bow to Susan or when he gives the little drops to Lucy. But he says something about like don't use this unless you have to, because like war is messy when women are involved.
Yes, I wrote that down too. Yeah.
It's like
he's like, Susan, first thing, go into a tree. Second, if you have to, arrows. But I
Because you're
do,
a woman.
yes.
So
A thing I feel like I shouldn't like in storytelling, but I do, is it's so perfectly typified here. But like Father Christmas comes in and he's like, I have four special presents, one for each of you with a special talent that will help you later on in the story, is something I love. And they're like reflective of each character and like, and they'll be surprisingly, I love that. I love, because it is like you said, like you're setting things up that get really nicely resolved later on.
I liked it. And I also then went like everything else was kind of magical, and then
Yeah.
Peter's was literally just a sword and shield. So I
Yeah.
went back and re-listened to it and was like, wait, did I miss them describing what this does? And I was like, nope. They were just like, fight. You
Weapon,
got
yeah.
this.
The movie Tilda Swinton cast as the White Witch is perfect. Like I don't.
That's who it was in my head the whole
Mhm.
time. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was like, she is perfectly that. What's the actual name? Oh, yeah, she's not human. It's other what half
Oh yeah, it was
something.
bizarre. Half giant
Yeah,
and
half
half
giant, half I don't know, but I just remember being like, wait, what?
jinn. Like in, I think, Islamic folklore. She's no daughter of Eve. She comes of your father Adam's. Here, Mr. Beaver bowed. Your father Adam's first wife, her they called Lilith, and she was one of the jinn, and that's what she comes from on one side, and on the other side, she comes of the giants.
The only way that I know like Lilith or Jinn or any of that stuff is from Supernatural. So unfortunately.
I was waiting for it. I was like,
So
yeah,
they
yeah,
so they said that and I was like, from Supernatural.
yeah.
I forgot that those were other things first. It was like, okay, yeah, never mind. Never mind.
No,
Can't
but
cross
there's
the
like,
stream.
last night I was watching Click starring Adam Sandler, and his daughter is like, when she's aged up, is, but you're looking for something. I'm a little
I have
scared.
a shirt. I have fuck. I'm not gonna okay, I'm not gonna go try to find it, but I literally was going through a bunch of my clothes right before this, and I have a shirt that has a picture of the poster. It says, I have a lot of thoughts about the Adam Sandler movie Click parentheses 2007, and it has a picture of the poster. I was about to turn around and try to find it, but it might be under a bunch of stuff, so I'm not gonna do that. But
Um,
anyway, aged up
but
daughter from Click.
I forget what she like, because I did watch Supernatural, but I, a lot of it didn't stick in my mind. But there's like a hot blonde who comes in like maybe season 3 or something to help out. She's very edgy, and she plays his aged up daughter. And I was really like, I don't know where I know you. But
Wait, that's the Sandler
somewhere.
verse Supernatural verse crossover is very funny.
How did you feel about the beavers? Because they play such a big role in this book, and there was like a storm drain, like a drainage ditch behind my house that I could, like, I'm a small person, I could like go inside of sometimes, and my mom was like, there are snakes in there, stop doing that. But a beaver lived in there. um, that's one thing I do really love about Maryland, is that like you are in the suburbs, but you will see like foxes and deer and chipmunks and squirrels and beavers and stuff. I really love that.
Yeah,
Here it's
they're
coyotes, and that's it.
I used to see like foxes and deer in the neighborhood a fair amount, and now I mean I'm in New York. It's all rats,
Mhm.
rat city, baby. In my mind, the beavers are giant. In my mind, these
Yeah,
are
they're like
huge.
Lucy size.
Yeah, and I was confused as to the level of sentience of like some animals have more sentience than others, and it's not super
Yeah,
clear why. But they were just like, yeah, we'll help you immediately. I was like, why do the beavers have human food?
yeah, and sewing machines
And
and
sewing machines that they want to run away
glasses.
with.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, we have to flee. Can I please bring my sewing machine?
We all need
Like,
gloves. Yeah.
you're a beaver. Are you not warm enough? What is that for?
And Mr. Beaver always likes beer, but Mrs. Beaver doesn't.
Yeah,
Like
getting
sits down,
fucked up.
cracks a cold one with the boys. Yeah.
I think it's very charming how little explanation is given.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and these beavers are helpful and nice, and they eat soup and beer.
Yeah. And they see humans and they're like, I got it. I know what it is. But I think that was something I kind of liked about the books then and now, is that there is this like sense of like the resistance and like underground, and we know Aslan's coming back, and sort of whispered, and you have to ferry people from one place to the other, that I think like anything seditious was like very tingly to me, I think, as a kid. I don't know why. Well, my mom wrote her PhD thesis on secession, and how that works in political science. So maybe it was her fault because I was in the womb during that.
You're absorbing it all.
Yeah, I was sitting there. She was like taking her test or whatever, just rolling in the goo, the Bolshevik goo. Yeah, what a gross thing to say, Erin.
No, that's beautiful.
But I was, when Edmund arrives at the White Witch's castle and sees all of the creatures turn to stone, was very effective to me. I feel like there is, I don't remember any other things, but I wrote this down of like, I feel like across children's media at that time there was like a recurring fear of being turned to stone. Obviously, like, that's Medusa, like, tale as old as time, but what does that say about, like, are we afraid of like freezing childhood? I went on a very introspective tangent.
I feel like I remember what you're talking about. Like, I feel like there were a few children's media things in a row where the bad thing was like becoming a statue in some way. I think it's like very scary, the idea of being alive, but like are they conscious in there? I remember as a kid being like, has time passed
Yeah.
to them?
What
What's going on
happens if
there?
like your arm breaks off while you're a statue? Like, how does that affect you coming
Ugh.
back? And I think also like that scene was really terrifying because it was like they're so dense. How many frozen ones there are, which is obviously like how many people have been frozen, but like were they all to come back to life, this would be a space of like a lot of movement, which it is when they all come back to life later. But that's what it was. I was thinking when Aslan and Lucy are going around at the end, like bringing all the people back to life and curing everybody, I was like, this is just like the end of Halloween Town 2. When the little sister's like running around shouting, I think, Trappa at everyone to like turn them back to their normal self. That's what I thought of.
My God. There was part of it that was like when they were, I think it was the giant that they were unfreezing from stone. Like Aslan kisses the feet to make that happen. And I was like, they're doing Jesus metaphors again.
Stop it.
Stop. Stop doing Jesus metaphors. He's a lion.
Have you seen Return to Oz? Big
I have
movie for
not.
me. Very, very frightening children's movie that's like a sequel to The Wizard of Oz. And The Wizard of Oz is like, was my thing. I have too much knowledge on it. But there is a scene at the end where everyone has been turned not into like statues, but tchotchkes basically in this king's palace. And so she's running around like turning them all back. And she's like, all the green ones are from Oz. And it's like the same kind of thing of like, we got time to bring everybody back to life. It's still so mind-blowing to me that my boyfriend hasn't consumed this at all, because this is like, to me, the definition of like childhood fantasy media. This is the standard.
Yeah, to me, this is like the one. I feel like most people don't know that there's more books. Just even this one book by itself is so like, it's got talking animals, it's got the evil witch / queen, it's got chosen one prophecy heroes who are children who like are gonna save the day. I remember also like with the professor, I remember being really surprised that he was like supportive and was like, yeah, I believe you. This could have so easily been a story where all of the adults are like, well, I guess there's only one adult. Could have been like, fuck you, I don't believe you, and like made them feel insane. But I thought it was very sweet that the one relevant adult in the story is like, no, what if she's right? And like encouraging this child's imagination.
And I love that
like,
he approached it from like a logic perspective and it's like, is this a person who lies? And they're like, no. And then he's like, then she's probably not lying. Like, do you think she would have just changed for some big reason? And I think it's revealed in the first book that like the professor was part of founding Narnia, I think.
Yeah, I was like, isn't he's in on it or something?
Yeah. I even love when they're playing the game at the beginning. I don't have the exact line, but C.S. Lewis writes something of like, there is something like tugging them towards the wardrobe, and there is like something that wants them there, and there's some kind of magic, even in our world. I do love that once they realize Edmund has snuck out, Mr. Beaver is like, yeah, I thought he was treacherous from the beginning.
Like, yeah, that kid is bad news, absolutely telling on us. We gotta go now. He wastes no time. Yeah, no time at all. Yeah, I clocked that. We're going.
This is like in hindsight a Jesus thing of like every time they talked about Aslan, they're like, we all got this like warm and fuzzy sensation. Spring is coming and something good is happening. And like, I think for Edmund, the mention of Aslan gave him a mysterious and horrible feeling, just as it gave the others a mysterious and lovely feeling. Because Edmund is to his core a bad little boy.
Yeah, they're like, this 8-year-old is the Antichrist. This 8-year-old is the Antichrist.
Yeah.
8-year-old Judas.
And then I think the actor who played Edmund in like the 2005 whatever year it was, I think he went on to be like a conservative in British Parliament and has proven to be a little Edmund in real
Oh my
life.
god.
When he like is going to the witch after he's left them at the beavers, he's like, I'm thinking I'll outlaw all beavers, and just like all these crazy like fascist laws he wants to pass.
There was something, oh my god, when he was saying the laws that he wants to pass,
Yeah.
there's something he says about the fucking railways that I was like, huh? Excuse me? I was like, is this a direct Mussolini reference from an 8-year-old?
Oh my god, yeah, Edmund is sitting in class learning about Mussolini. He's like, well,
Got some points.
effective.
Yeah, when they said that, I was like, okay, C.S. Lewis, was that on purpose?
Especially, like, it's 1950. Like, it is in the zeitgeist. It is in the newspapers.
Yeah, bro, this is last year
Yeah.
for you.
When they are with Father Crispus, and just before the line about it's ugly when women fight, Lucy goes, I think I could be brave enough, which I remembered so clearly, and it's like such a gorgeous moment. And then Santa's like, no, misogyny.
I forgot it was from Santa Claus.
Even again, like, you have a whole fantasy world and Santa Claus is a misogynist. Like, we can't have that.
Like, no, you could never fight. You're a woman. Anyway, I'm real. Bye.
What a guy. The next thing I noticed is that, like, while the witch is trying to catch the beavers, they pass, like, a fox and his friends and his family having Christmas dinner, which is so nice. But the witch, again, like with Christianity, the witch is, like, chastising them and yelling at them. And she goes, all this gluttony, this waste, this self-indulgence. And I was like, now she's saying very Christian things? I'm so confused. Gluttony's a sin. What?
It's like, what figure in the Bible are we supposed to think you are?
Is Edmund Judas? Like,
It's a child Judas.
yeah, it's all this kid's fault. This 8-year-old, they only mentioned it twice, but like in all of the White Witch's minions, there's a guy with the body of a bull and the head of a man, and I hated that visual. I hated thinking about that.
Yeah.
Because like the good guys have a minotaur, which is like flipped.
Yeah, I was about to say, kind of a reverse minotaur.
Which now I'm even thinking of like, did they like swap? Like, is the head of this guy the body of on the other side? And
Where's their sequel?
Next thing, I have people who have not been in Narnia sometimes think that a thing cannot be good and terrible at the same time. And then the wolf attacks, and there's a quote that's, I won't say there wasn't kissing and crying on both sides, but in Narnia, no one thinks any worse of you for that. And in the witch's evil people, there are the people of the toadstools, not people I would peg as evil.
Yeah, that sounds kind of small and charming, I think.
Very cottagecore 2023.
Yeah, it kind of sounds cute.
Like, I remember finding the witch, like, oddly empowering as a child, because it is this, like, the most powerful person in the land is bad, but a lady. Even that much was kind of...
Well, this is kind of girl boss, if nothing else.
So starved for...
We just need any representation, please.
Yeah. I did love that when all the siblings are reunited, Aslan takes Edmund off to the side and like gives him a talking to, and then Aslan comes back and he's like, your brother's back, and there is no need to talk about what he's done. That's it. I like that, but I am like, there's trauma there.
You will need to talk about this eventually.
Yeah. He did sell you out for candy, which we did try. We did eat Turkish Delight.
Yes.
The two of
I
us.
have.
They're just like gummies coated in so much powdered sugar.
Like, I have to like tap it on
Yeah,
the paper towel.
like a
to get it.
cigarette. Yeah.
Yeah, literally ash it like a cigarette.
I got rose flavored, which the internet said is like the standard flavor.
Mine
And you
are,
got fruit.
yeah, it's strawberry, peach, melon, tangerine, and blackberry.
I definitely see like this with British tea time. Very much tracks, but also like not enough for your family's life, bro.
Yeah, definitely not not definitely not like a family ending candy to me. It's just
No.
so much it's so much fucking sugar.
Yes. I
He's
like
out here in the snow eating something that's just
yes. And he's got to like get back to the wardrobe. And when he's telling on Lucy and lying to everyone, I can just imagine like his face and fingers covered with powdered sugar.
looking guilty as hell. When I tried one of these for the first time, I like had it and then thought nothing of it and went about the rest of my night. And then when I looked in the mirror, I had powdered sugar like directly under the tip of my nose. Like it's so cartoonish. I was like, what is that?
I haven't even unwrapped it, and it is falling out of the
Just fallout.
package.
Yeah, it is overwhelming. None of the back of it is in English.
Oh yeah, they are vegan.
Yeah, these are vegan. Because no artificial sweeteners, which I find hard to believe.
Yeah, they seem exactly like gelatin. So how are they?
Yeah, I'm like,
Whatever.
what's your definition of fucking vegan? But yeah, whatever.
I really love the moment of Lucy and Susan realizing that Aslan is about to die, or like that something bad is going to happen, and walking with him to the stone table. And I think that like it was such a gorgeous moment of Aslan being like, I am afraid. And it's really nice to have two friends here walking me to this.
It was sad. It made me fucking sad. Like,
Yeah.
he knows he's gonna die.
It's a slightly longer quote, but I wanted to at least look for it. I hope no one who reads this book has been quite as miserable as Susan and Lucy were that night. But if you have, if you've been up all night and cried till you have no more tears left in you, you will know that there comes in the end a sort of quietness. You feel as if nothing was ever going to happen again. Glad that he gave kids that, like a frame of reference if they have felt that way or feel that way in the future.
My version of relating to that as a kid is definitely different than my version of relating to it now.
Yeah.
Where I was like, yeah, when you cry so hard, you're like, there's no crying left.
Yeah.
We're done.
There's nothing left to do but to sit with it. And then they're really weirdly rude to giants when they turn that giant back into an alive person. They're like, Mr. Tumnus is like, I've never met a smart one.
Mr. Tumnus doing microaggressions instantly.
Exactly. And yet, forgive him. I love him. Did nothing wrong. Multiple times, Aslan is written as clapping his paws together, which I cannot. Hilarious. Like, is he a seal? Like,
His little. I love the image. Like,
yeah.
when they shaped him and they're like, oh, he's just a big cat. I'm like, okay, I know you're trying to say that to be insulting, but like, that's adorable.
The battle takes place so much, mostly off screen. Like, chapter 17 is the last chapter, I think, starts. The battle was all over a few minutes after their arrival. Most of the enemy had been killed in the first charge of Aslan and his companions. It seems like Edmund kind of saves the day. Peter says it was all Edmund's doing. Aslan, we'd have been beaten if it wasn't for him. Edmund, like, breaks the wand, and then the witch is not powerless, but, like, significantly defeated. I think especially because it takes place off screen, it doesn't feel sufficient to redeem Edmund at all.
Yeah, I thought that would be more of a moment than it was. I don't know. I'm like, I don't think Edmund earned the redemption that this book gives him.
No. And going back to Amy March, like, I really stand by Amy March. Like, I think of the four March sisters, I'm an Amy, and she makes her mistakes because she was a child, and then she learns and grows. And maybe Edmund learns and grows as time goes on, but real little shit behavior here. It's a lot more than just burning your sister's manuscript, you know? Something else.
Yeah.
The last bits when they are adults living in Narnia, I really read that section very differently, I think, as an adult, because their manner of speech changes. It's suddenly like very royal and polished, and they're like, how art thee, and wherefore is this, and they like kind of don't recognize the lamppost anymore.
Yeah, they're like, oh, it's what do they call it? They're like, it's a something of iron. They like don't they're like, I don't know what a lamppost is.
Lucy's like, it will not go out of my mind that if we pass this post and lantern, Either we shall find strange adventures, or else some great change of our fortunes. And they're like calling each other madam and fair brother, and then they're suddenly children again. And I think I thought this then a little bit, but now especially I was like, that's messed up. That moment of them landing back has to be such a weird moment.
Yeah. Yeah, they lived a whole fucking
Yeah.
life. Do you know how mad I would be if I walked through a door and I was 8 again? I'd be so pissed off.
I really want to know the political stuff that had to happen there.
Yeah, I like they're like they were good rulers and they had a great time for
Yeah.
years and years and years. I'm like, no, tell me.
Yeah, how? I don't believe
How?
it. Especially because, like, we know this world can be corrupted.
Yeah.
But I also loved that the professor automatically knows, one, that the wardrobe will not work again as a portal, and two, they will be back. And he also says, don't tell anyone and do not discuss it amongst each other.
Yeah, crazy.
Which now I'm thinking that and Aslan saying, like, don't talk to Edmund about his thing is, like, perhaps very British. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, maybe that's a commentary on him being like, and the British don't talk about shit, and I fucking hate it.
The end. Fucking hate the British.
And the story was for nothing because the British don't like to talk about their feelings. The end.
And they're all not in therapy because it's the 50s. But that's all my notes on the book. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss in the grand scope of it? I feel like we didn't talk a lot about, like, the other characters.
Yeah. I mean, I think Lucy is kind of, in many ways, the only character.
Yeah. Yeah. Peter is brave and Susan is a mom. And
Yeah, they're there. They're
Yeah.
like, and this is older brother, and his character trait is older brother, and this is older sister, and her character trait is older sister.
Yeah.
And then, like, Lucy gets to be a person, Edmund gets to be a person, but, like, negative. I feel like I thought that they were all more developed characters
Yeah.
for rereading it. I was kind of struck by how little anyone other than Lucy gets to have feelings that are
Yeah.
discussed.
There's a really interesting moment when Lucy first sees Edmund after the battle and she's tending to him, and Aslan is like, we gotta treat the other people. And she's like, no. And she gets cross, is the word. And I was like, that's a really interesting moment because, like, after all of this, Lucy still really loves and cares about her brother. I want to spend more time in that moment. And Aslan is like, no emotions. We gotta go, baby.
Also, the fact that they're like, and Aslan's gone again. He'll come back whenever he's the wild lion. You'll see him.
When they're unfreezing all of the animals, there's, like, another lion who's just normal.
Yeah, I thought that was so funny. I was like, wait, there's other lions? They're just regular.
And Aslan is like, we lions will do this. And the other lion is like, he said we. So.
Yeah.
Me
Yeah, like, there's
too.
2 of you. Like, it was so funny to me. Like, okay, there's just another guy. What's your lore for lions? Like,
He's
not
just
all
normal.
lions are Jesus, just this one. I think Aslan means lion in Turkish or something. Like, Aslan
Oh.
means lion in some language. So it's like, this is lion, and then there's another one.
Aslan is a boy's name that means lion. Yeah, from a quick Goog. It's from thebump.com, so who knows?
Thanks, the bump.
But also, like, I went on, like, the Narnia wiki because when they're in the beaver dam, they're talking about, like, Aslan is the son of the great emperor who, like, lives beyond the sea. And I was like, that I know is, like, Jesus and God, but also sounds really interesting and, like, lore filled. So I went and was like, do we ever get any more information on that? No.
Yeah, but of course not. Why would we? Why would they give us that incredibly interesting lore drop? Yeah, I'm like, okay, he's a lion. His dad is God. There are other lions, but their dad is not God. They're just regular.
Yeah. A couple episodes back, I read Percy Jackson, The Lightning Thief. And that book was written by a teacher. Oh, this is a separate thing that I just have to say. There is a documentary on Amazon Prime about the Wiggles. It is called Hot Potato. I wept beginning to end. Tears of joy. Phenomenal. 3 of the 4 original Wiggles, like, were child educators, and the 4th one was just in a band with one of the other Wiggles, and they were like, we're making these songs because we understand child psychology. And it was just so good. So sweet and so good.
That's adorable.
Big love to the Wiggles. I don't even know where I was going with that. Do that. Oh, but the Percy Jackson, that was written by a teacher who like had all of his middle school or elementary school students read it, and there was very much a sense of like these kids were finding plot holes and were being like, what about this? This doesn't make sense. How does that work? And this was a book that was very much like, don't worry about it. Just like don't ask questions about Aslan. He's just here.
He's lying. He's doing whatever he wants. How did he come back to life? Nah, who cares?
The cracking of the stone table, what a magical moment. I'm always gonna love that moment. It was
at the time so cool and so badass, and I didn't even care why it happened.
No.
Like, no questions about it as a kid. Didn't have thoughts about that until as an adult, and was like, okay, I do wish there was an explanation, but don't really care that much.
And I also love the idea of a stone table, because it's like sort of a natural function, but also has like very mystical magical powers. Just a little world detail I really liked.
It's such a like visual, I don't know, like the stone table thing is such a stark visual too.
I had looked this up, but I forgot about it until just now. I wanted to look for where the name Narnia comes in. There is a town in Italy called Narnia, or in Italian, Narni. And I think C.S. Lewis was just like, that's nice. So we're going to do that.
Hey, wherever you can get it from.
Maybe
that's funny.
We should all go see it in Italy.
As Clive Staples Lewis intended.
Yes. How do you feel having read this as an adult and come back to visit it? What was the experience like for you?
It was very cute to reread. I think most of my feeling was like, I wish I did not know that this was religious metaphors, because I really just enjoyed it for the surface level magic of it as a kid, and like still really liked that now. It was like, it went faster than I thought, and I was like, I guess as a kid my brain kind of filled in more details than there were. So that makes sense. So I think I got more out of reading it as a kid because I was supposed to.
Yeah. The target audience, yeah.
Yeah. But like I think that's a good thing.
Would you consider it required reading?
For kids, I would say yes. If you don't tell them that there's a Jesus metaphor.
And I wonder if that is in the other books as well, or if he's just like, let's keep having a good time.
I don't remember it being in the other ones, but I have no memory of almost any of the other books, so beats me. I didn't get this one and it was incredibly obvious. But like, I think everyone when they are like 8 should give every 8-year-old a copy of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and see if they just start exploring stuff more, just to be like, just checking that there's not this in my house, just ground check.
Yeah, I think it like encourages a level of like curiosity in the world that I think is really nice, and that I think maybe I've lost and I want to get back.
Yeah, it's like a curiosity and like wonder of like maybe this ordinary thing has magic.
Yeah. Behind any door, it could be a wonderful adventure waiting for you.
A door that they never close. Because every time they go in there, they're always like, because everyone knows it would be stupid to close the door behind you in a wardrobe. I thought like, oh, is that going to come back up later in a way that I didn't remember? And it turns out, I feel like that was just C.S. Lewis telling children, if you go in a wardrobe because of this book, don't close the door.
Don't get locked in.
Yeah. I will not be responsible for you locking yourself in the wardrobe. You can go in there, but don't close the door.
Which I really appreciate, actually. Good on you, Clive.
Very, very good looking out. Yeah, that was my final thought, is that I appreciated him being like that felt like more like he was telling readers, like, it is a bad idea to close the door behind you. Please explore, please have fun. But here's the real life danger that we don't want you to do.
Yeah, good on you, Clive. Is there anything you want to plug?
I'm pretty findable. I am on Instagram and Twitter at Max Got Jokes. I am on TikTok at Max Got Jokes, but the last O is 0. Someday I will take the original username from whoever has it, because they don't even post.
They never do. Whoever has the original.
I am doing a couple shows on the road that I will post about on my social media, because I'm like, I don't have enough details to be. Yeah. This has been so fun, and thank you for making me read a book. I'm glad I did that for my own enrichment.
It was so fun, and it's always a treat to go back to Narnia, I think.
I might see about the other ones in the series, because Audible gives you 2 books free. So
nice.
Still got another one waiting.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I guess, should we shake hands, close out?
Yeah. Shake hands. Yeah. Don't close the wardrobe door.
Have a good one. It was so nice to talk to you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much to Max for this wonderful episode and chat. I it sounds like I'm cooking in some of this, and that's on me for using a glass with a glass straw. I've learned something. Next week, we are talking Streetcar Named Desire by Tennessee Williams with Krista Moy. It is a different kind of episode. It is heavy. It is wonderful. And I have to pee so bad. You can find me everywhere at Erin R. Bowles. The R stands for Rapture. Sound good? All right, see you next time. Thank you. Love you. Bye.